that are undergoing so much transformation, right? Amazing. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'll add these references to our template. And on that note, I'll start by sharing it if that's okay, because I just want to. I put some commentary there, and I wanted to guide you guys through. But just to set the context a little bit, like we look for trends because we want to understand the direction that the world is going, right? Or a slice of the world, or a particular part of the world is going. So that's why we look for trends. So we look for trends because we want to understand where where is work-life balance going, or where wellness is going, or where sustainability is going. So there are specific reasons why we follow it. So mapping trends is something that can be very broad, and I chose to focus on a very small aspect because it's based on more things that you see more nowadays. So it's more focused on like consumer goods, but the process is pretty much the same. So I'll start by just sharing a little bit my, let me share my screen, and we go to my Miro board. And you guys feel free to interrupt me at any time. This is not supposed to be a class, okay? This is just a chat. So the first thing I want to talk about is what are the elements that we should be driving, you know, when you're looking for a trend. But before that, I just want to. Sometimes people say, "Well, Mario, what is a trend, and what it isn't?" You know. First thing that I can start by saying what a trend is I can start by saying actually what it isn't. So a trend is not a fad. UGG shoes in a particular shade of pink are a fad. They're not a trend. But however, many fads can together combined to offer a good portrait of a particular trend. So if you combine a particular fuchsia pink strange looking UGG shoe with another fad, which is like very thick types of knit fabrics, for example, plus being stuck at home, plus other things that can indicate, for example, a larger trend of trying to be comfortable at home and trying to cocoon. And there are many experts in trends. I think the biggest and most traditional one is someone by the name of Faith Popcorn. But there are many places in the world that craft, then they have their own techniques and their own methodologies of mapping and understanding trends. What I'm going to share with you today, and it's in this Miro board, and I'll share the Miro board link with you guys. You guys can take it home. You can duplicate it. I just ask you that you duplicate it and make a copy and take a copy for yourselves. And let me share the link here now. Where is the link? It's in the chat box. But basically, that's what you look, and what you need to look for trends is there's an internal element. So there is a certain level of intuition, and it starts with understanding the kind of impact that a certain imagery or a certain article has on you, or a certain piece of data has on you. So the first thing is, does it entice you? Is it unique or special, or is it different? So there's a moment that you apply judgment. That's why trend is something that you don't do by yourself. You do it in a group. Okay. And there's also a second aspect. I'll bring everyone to me now. Let me see if I can bring people to me. Oh, I think everyone is here, right? The second one is we look at external elements. We look at how things change through time. We look at demographic, we look at the world, we look at changes in the world. So we look at legislation, we look at trade, and we look at diplomacy. Those that are going to be doing the futures modules in a couple of weeks from now, you will be looking at this from a lens of scenario planning, and you will be looking at externalities and macroeconomic forces. So that's also big external elements that can guide you in your trend making. But the first example that I put here, so I just, okay, I'm just separating it into a few steps, which is the first thing you do is you seek stimulus, right? So if you're looking for a trend, you have to kind of harvest the world or the specific industry or a specific area that you're working on. And I'll just start by some examples here, and I'm explaining a little bit why. So first is you look at the newsmakers. So why newsmakers? Because they're following leads. They're trying to carve stories that are happening in the market. So those are big brainy news sources. It's more like the Atlantic and the Financial Times, and not so much news enhancers. But news enhancers are also important. So news enhancers are companies that interpret the news. So, like for example, it would be like the Guardian or the New York Post. They usually are a bit more populist in their intent. So they look for popularity and look for a topic that drives click-through rate. So they're also a good measure of understanding where the world is going. Uh, Pieces that explore thought leadership are also great sources of content. So when we talk about foreign affairs, the World Economic Forum, when we look at fashion, fashion is important because it helps you understand how feelings are being translated into visual art, right? And into consumption. So if you look at fashion campaigns, video feeds, Instagram reels from certain from certain fashion houses. If you look at arts, exhibitions, they explore specific talking points that are important in a given time in society. So if you look at, for example, the exhibitions that are going on in specific museums, or if you look at, there is an online Biennale that's called The Wrong, which is completely digital, and they are very, very, very bleeding edge with the topics that they explore in arts. Um, if you look at auctions, auctions are an interesting place for you to explore trends, not just because of what's being sold there, but because of the person that is selling. So sometimes you have estates being sold, and that can give a hint, okay, that person was an influence. What influenced that person? And you'll be able to access that. On the streets, of course, you can see graffiti arts, where how people are dressing, crowd behavior, some special cool neighborhoods, or even low income areas. A lot of the musical influence that nowadays is present in these big singers like Justin Timberlake, The Weeknd. These came from very sometimes from rough neighborhoods, new releases, so that you can go for Apple and Spotify and understand how new releases, what these songs are talking about. They're futurist websites, that because they also interpret trends, and they interpret trends with their own lenses. So we have like some companies like Trend Watching, Springwise, Cool Hunting, social media, especially early adopters, they look at those things. So, but the challenge is mapping. Mapping is something that's very it's time consuming, and that is the first stop. It's like when you seek stimulus, and once you seek the stimulus, the whole idea for you is to start, after you do that harvest, that canvassing moment. The second step is usually to present and arrange. So I'm just going to give you here two. I'll give you one example so this is from the early 2010s. These are bits of two specific songs. One is from Macklemore. It's called Thrift Shop, and the song was that song, I'm gonna pop some tags. I got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. But so if you just understand, the song is about going to a thrift shop to feel cool, feel like $1,000,000. Life is hard. And then there's a second song here, which is from the same time. It's Pitbull. It's Time of My Life, and it starts by saying that I knew my rent was going to be late about a week ago. I worked my ass off, but I still can't pay it though. But I just got enough to get off this club, have me a good time before my time is up. So if you just correlate that with the unemployment level in the United States at that same period, you understand that it's the highest it's been in recent history. So what does that tell you, right? So you're clustering that information. I'm looking at songs, and I'm looking at unemployment rates in the United States, and I'm seeing that I'm judging now. I'm looking at these feelings, and here I see a sense of detachment when I hear these songs. Like the kids that are hearing, they just want to have time. They're feeling probably a bit abandoned, and they're seeking pleasure. So that's the next stop. And I left here just a few examples. And if you guys want to do this by yourselves, or if you want to take home and give us a stab, this is from the present, right? So these are three pieces of news that I found now that I thought, how much of trend spotting is a team sport? 100% of trend spotting is a team sport. and why? Because you need multiple brains. It's that same principle that it's not something you do by yourself. So these are three articles. One talking about Elon Musk saying that if there aren't enough people on Earth, then there won't be enough people for Mars. And the second one is about humanity going extinct. And then China's birth rate dropping to a record low. So you can give yourself a try if you just want to take a moment and just give it a try on what are the feelings that are here. Is it a sense of oh, one more to add to the list. Yeah, Fjord Trends. Yeah, Fjord is a great company, right? Thanks for sharing. Yeah, they were bought by Accenture, right? Yeah, great. Yeah, I'll add it there. I know that we don't have a lot of time, and I want to hear you guys as well. So if you want to do this exercise, we can do it. But if you guys want to leave it for later, just one advice that I want to give you is that if you're looking at automating some type of system like this, perhaps adding tags to your description might help you in the future to map out some commonalities, you know, and copy pasting the stimulus, because sometimes the same stimulus may make sense in multiple clusters. So maybe the demographic data or the unemployment data makes sense to go together with a Pitbull song, but it also makes sense to go on a more serious cluster, you know, like something that's kind of combined with the World Economic Forum. It doesn't need to go just super shallow. And then after you've done that, you know, presenting and the arranging, and you start to kind of create these buckets of concepts, you start to kind of really name it and conceptualizing. And this is probably the part where it's better for you to try to do some sort of articulation in first person. So for this example, from the Macklemore songs and the Pitbull songs, I chose this example. It's like, I'm seeking new ways to find pleasure in a context that is surrounded by challenges. I don't want to take too much about the future or about others, since they're clearly not thinking about me either. So just a way to kind of clarify how that trend translates into a person, you know, how someone would adopt that trend, like how that would manifest. And you keep feeding, you explore, you feed more stimulus to confirm validation. So this is an exercise that you do maybe weekly with your team, maybe monthly, and then you will see that you will be adding more and more articles to one cluster, and the other cluster might be becoming skinnier and skinnier. That might be an indication of a trend that is kind of dying or fading out, or and on the other road of something that's growing and becoming more relevant. And before we end, I just have 5 minutes. I just want to walk you through an example of how I look for trends, in this case of something that's more driven towards consumers. So I went to Sephora website. I usually choose either what's new or what's most popular, because what's new, you see exactly what the market is pushing out at that moment. So it's probably not as far-fetched as straight from the mouth of the innovators, like going to the websites that talk about packaging trends, for example, or ingredient trends, but it also gives you an idea of what these big companies are accepting into their shops. So I found these two products here that I'm going to click on them, and I want you guys to see, if you guys can click on those links, you will see that, let me just share my whole desktop. So you guys, okay, so this is one of the products, right? It's a Hydro Cool Firming Neck. And then the second link that I'm going to click is also from Sephora, and it's again from another product that it's a Cryo C firming. So I'm looking here at something, so there's something about cold. So I'm already mapping something. I already found a commonality here about products that leverage cold towards to bring a certain effect. So and I can add cryotherapy there in the middle, but what I can see here is that cryotherapy is leaving that technical special field that is reserved for athletes, or that it's only about these cryotherapy rooms that you have to go and it's kind of expensive, and it's entering this new world of products that you can buy and take to your home. Okay, together with the little rollers that are cold rollers that you put in the freezer, that kind of stuff. And then, so this is one example. And then there's another example here from Nordstrom. I just looked at retailers and I see again what's new and what's more popular. And this link here shows me something very interesting. And I just found one example of this. So I think this is going to go somewhere. It's a fragrance called Vacation. And that really speaks, when I interpret this, when I judge this really speaks to what we've been going through in the sense of societies and families and people not being able to go out and experience the world and kind of yearning to have that experience from abroad, being that experience of traveling, of relaxation, or world of like sense of the world famous Vacation sunscreen company. It's so it really shows a little bit maybe a sense of escapism, of trying to escape from our daily lives. And again, it's especially in cultures that are struggling very, very much with how their lockdowns are happening, maybe like China, because China is like completely locked down, or maybe other countries that are just, they don't have the same structure as Singapore. This might indicate that how they're interpreting their current needs. All right. So I know it was a short demo, but I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about that? How do you feel? Are you more inspired to head out to look at this week with different eyes?